it's an hour later than usual. Today's Bring It In, our little TrueHoop Zoom show from quarantine. Fridays with Jarod. Our new hobby, by the way, everybody, I'll invite you to join in. Campaign to be the next topic of Jarod's next little minute-long video monologue. There's lobbying happening already. Do you feel the power, Jarod?
What are they lobbying for?
I've heard a couple things. No, it's cool. It's cool. It's a cool new thing. Thank you for doing it.
We love doing it. It's fun. Hope you guys enjoy it.
If I can ask, how many takes did it take? How many times did you have to record?
You know, I'm working on the Jay-Z plan, like, you know, that one take hove thing. I'm really kind of getting into my element with that right now. Of course, Jay-Z memorizes it in his head, like he writes it that way and then goes in the booth. So, you know, it's a little challenging, but I'm working my way towards that one take hove.
Ray Charles was the first famous one taker, so I know if he can do it when he can't even see obviously what he's doing. And of course, he's an incredible genius.
There was a period Jade Hoy had us recording these similar setup to what you did, and I think I was probably like a 9-take guy. What about you, David?
The last take's the best one.
It's hard, bro, right? I mean, getting a clean minute is.
It is, because that's the challenge, is getting it all into the clean minute, right? And, you know, that's where you get challenged. But, you know, we're pretty good. Definitely not quite 9 takes, but we're, you know.
Yeah. Okay, the clean minute, let's go to a dirty 90 seconds. Here we go. This is 9 by 90. We're each going to take 3 turns, 90 seconds each on just some topic that we found, some bric-a-brac laying around. It's okay. Don't worry. Just go with it. It's fine. You're first, Jarod.
So President Joe Biden has passed signed the American Rescue Plan into law, and that's a wonderful thing, right? And you all know, I talk about this all the time, right? Like this idea of holding these politicians to account and making sure that things are what they seem. Everyone's talking about the stimmy, as it's called on these Twitter streets, right? When the $1,400 check hits your account, what are you going to buy? All this fun stuff. And that's cool. Everybody enjoyed that. But if this bill actually works, it's actually going to have lasting impact for people that actually matter. Yeah. There are 20 million children right now who, because schools aren't in session, don't eat 2 meals a day, that being breakfast and lunch. And for most of us, you don't think of that because you're like, oh, I should go to the refrigerator. Well, for a lot of people, that's not a thing. And they've extended it now and infused that with cash for those kids. There's also the extension of EBT, right? There's also the extension of the SNAP program. There's so many things that are helping people who need assistance I'm not talking about what you can do with your stimmy. I'm saying the basic things that most of us probably take for granted on a day-to-day basis that they can actually do now because we have these things in place. Also, there's about, I want to say 20 billion going into education to help schools and the poorest districts re-outfit themselves with proper ventilation systems and things that matter so that children can go to school and actually have a productive learning environment. So while I am skeptical, kudos to President Biden for putting a comprehensive plan together.
Keep that skepticism strong, though. We need it. It's good for us. So we know what happened with Myers-Leonard. We also know, we should know what's going on with our Asian Americans or Asians, I don't care if they're from America or not, when they're in America. Jeremy Lin, pretty famous young man, gave a pretty powerful speech, I thought, on video. I think it was yesterday. And speaking as a Jewish person, yeah, I think Myers is probably ignorant as much as anything. What Jeremy talked about is much more concerning to me. Trump the other day, he literally in his official statement said, he referred to COVID and then said, popularly known as the China virus. Like, it's not going to stop. His people aren't going to stop. And it hasn't always been this way for everyone, everywhere in America. I grew up at a time where in my school, we treated everyone far more decently than I even realized when I befriended them years later. In fact, Henry's met one of my lifelong friends who's Filipino. I was moved to tears when he said, I never once felt anything but love from all of you. And he moved in our school in 5th grade. And we went through college together. It's possible. If those of us that know better have to teach everybody else. We have to model decency. It's not hard. And I'll be first to admit, when you're a little ignorant on something, don't use the word. If you're not exactly sure what any word means, check it out. Like, that doesn't take a lot more than just being mildly decent. And if you model that behavior, I promise you your kids will follow. And that's how we end this ridiculousness that's going on in America today. Not just those two targets, but far more generally than that, obviously.
That was traumatic. I'm going to talk about basketball. Just a quick little thing here. Joel Embiid is, I guess, kind of like the icon of what Charles Barkley wants the league to be, or the anti-analytics crowd, right? Like he's shoving Rudy Gobert out of the way and making a layup and smash mouth kind of thing. And I guess it's seen as like the antithesis of analytics, but it is completely analytics. We can talk about this more later, but to me, analytics in the NBA is making evidence-based decisions. I don't particularly enjoy that, but like that's what it is. Joel Embiid in the post is analytically incredibly sound. It's a better offense than the Brooklyn Nets offense, which is the best offense in the history of basketball. So to me, like it's been dumbed down or simplified in a way that isn't what these people I know, like Daryl Morey. I've known Daryl Morey for more than a decade. He was never saying, let's make a handy dandy rule that will ban traditional power forwards and have everybody shoot threes. Like that's never, he's a way smarter guy than that, right? Like it's always been a very difficult chunk of work that results in just better decisions, more likely to succeed decisions. And it's worked. It's changed every team. People can misapply them. Sure, they can misapply cars. They can misapply every piece of technology, like for sure. But this is it. When you see Joel Embiid dunking on Rudy Gobert, that's analytics too.
I like it. So one of the things I enjoy doing is spending time within different NBA fan bases' Twitters. Warriors Twitter is a fun place, particularly now that they're on the other side of things, right? Like they're seeing how the other half of the NBA lives after their 5-year, really royal ascension. And it's so funny because so much of the IR is directed towards Steve Kerr always. It's, why can't he use better rotations? These guys stink. If you're going to do that, just let Steph Cook run a million pick and rolls. And it's this balance, right, between Kerr's philosophy, and Kerr's philosophy is ball movement, player movement, right? Everybody touching the ball, finding energy, and a fan base that's like, look, that ain't working with these average level talent that we have. It's great when we have KD and Clay and Draymond, but when we have these dudes, not so good. And so, right, what's the balance there? And I think it's such an insightful thing, and it's really interesting to think about, right, how a fan looks at things. And I really, fans in many ways don't appreciate sort of what they have in front of them in the moment, right? It's just sort of like, that wasn't real life, what you were doing those last 5 years, right? Real life in the NBA is somewhat kind of what you're doing now, right? You're middling around 500. You got one really superstar player, and everybody else is, kind of good, right? Or kind of, NBA level, like starting good. So I think it's funny, and I enjoy spending time in fan bases' Twitters.
Just a little hint of vindictiveness there, maybe. Just a little.
Oh, no.
But just to pick up on that, I don't know what the fans are saying, but in last night's game, they decided they were going to start James Wiseman. That was the plan. Steve Kerr admitted this after the game. During the break, they decided let's increase his minutes. They had pulled him out of the lineup in favor of Kevon Looney, who is a better player now, but won't be a better player for long. And Wiseman missed, like he just didn't show up with the test that you have to do in order to be eligible to play. For practice 2 days ago. And it was a really important practice because they almost never practice now in the NBA because of COVID, way worse than ever before. And Kerr punished Wiseman for sitting him until the game was long over. They were down 85 points, I think. And Wiseman went crazy in the fourth quarter, and people think, oh, he's angry, whatever, I don't care. We need that. James Wiseman needs that. There's even some people saying he's such a sensitive kid, he wants to be so perfect, this is going to bring him down. Sorry, bro. This is the way the game goes. Like, you have bad things happen to you. Learn to deal with it. That's a learning lesson too. I love any coach who actually does some coaching. Players actually want to be held accountable. You have to do it a professional way. Anyone listen to Steve Kerr after the game, and I think I put it on there, Judy, he's loving up Wiseman. It's not like he's trashing him. So that's how you do it. You don't yell at your kid and say you're dumb for doing that and then never say, I love you very much. You do both. And you probably shouldn't call your kid dumb anyway. But they did it the right way. Kerr knows what he's doing. Just wait. It's good things are coming down the road.
Warriors Twitter not happy with the decision last night, Coach.
Yeah.
They were flaming Steve Kerr all night for that.
Let's make sure we talk about fans after this.
I just want. I'm a journalism fan, and this article is incredible. I thought very difficult to understand what's happening in America right now in a sort of a real on the ground way, and came out 2-3 days ago. Sabrina Tavernise of the New York Times. Shout out to you. It's an incredibly layered little tapestry of different characters in a little town in Virginia, Rocky Mount. Early in the story, 2 white police officers dance with the leader of the local Black Lives Matter movement. By the end, those 2 police officers are storming the Capitol and taking pictures of themselves, flipping the bird. And everybody's fighting on Facebook the whole time. There's county meetings and on and on. And it ends with Bridget Craighead, who's a little bit of a superstar here. She's 30 years old. Let me just read you this section. She's a Black woman who owns a hair salon in town. A few days after the riot, flags appeared on the railing outside Jeff's Car Care, the business that crossed the parking lot from Miss Craighead's salon. There was a Trump flag and a Blue Lives Matter flag and 2 others she did not understand. The owner wrote angry posts on Facebook calling her a troublemaker and saying she's wanting to hang police officers and military veterans. He declined to be interviewed. On a cold January afternoon, she sat tear-streaked in a purple sweatshirt in one of the hairdryer chairs in her salon. This was not how she thought things would turn out. She keeps looking back at the video in the sunshine of that spring day. I really thought we were changing the world for real, she said, crying. Her son, 4, threw his arms around her neck, trying to soothe her. I feel like the world got it, but not Rocky Mount. And now she's running for the Virginia State House. I'm out of time. There you go.
You can't just drop it right.
No, we're done. That's it. That's the rules, Jarod. That's it. Moving on. Sorry.
So Kyrie Irving had himself a game last night, which is not uncommon. But I thought this was pretty interesting following the game.
I saw this.
Oh, where'd the sound? What happened?
It's not playing.
All your former teammates, but
big surprise, huh? To a lot of people.
Well, honestly,
all that talking about me and all the relationships I have with every teammate of mine. I'm glad we get to see it every single game. That I got some great people out here.
But honestly,
we know, of course, all the talk that came out of Boston and everywhere. Kyrie's a bad teammate and all these various things. And, you know, and it wasn't singular to this Boston game, although it's because he played for the Celtics why it mattered. Following every NBA game. And, you know, that's sort of the NBA fraternity, right? Those guys share a sort of connection and brotherhood and understanding that we don't understand because we don't play in the NBA, right? Like we are not among the few small 1% of people that are allowed to do that. But I thought it was telling, right? That oftentimes after these Boston games, he's often in long embraces with guys like Tatum and Brown and various players and really just, you know, seeming to be loving on one another. So yes, while no doubt there were probably basketball related problems, as the players often say, you know, things are bigger and go beyond the sport of basketball.
So I'm going to take a timeout as a basketball so-called expert who gets caught up.
Keep rolling the clock, Judy. Keep rolling the clock.
Oh, I didn't mean timeout that way. Just a live timeout. We talk about Lakers, Clippers, Jazz, Bucks, Giannis, LeBron. You know all the names. We've got 3 dudes in this league that are babies, that are just incredible talents, and really amazing teammates. It seems to me in terms of they play for us, not just me. And John Morant, who's extraordinary. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I don't think will be recognized outside of a mall, maybe not even Oklahoma City, who's just an incredible talent. And of course, Luka Doncic, who is probably more well-known just because he was also a great player in Europe, and the NBA's really embraced him. But those other 2 guys are right there with him. And I'm not saying they're just as good. I'm also not saying they won't beat him in series multiple times going forward. And so what I start wondering is, all right, we've got Zion Williamson. He's incredible. Fucking incredible. I think James Wiseman is going to be absolutely amazing. And those are big guys. And the other 3 guys I mentioned are all guards. So we've seen all this pairing up, LeBron and AD and Kawhi and Paul and the guys in Brooklyn. So who's going to get those dudes, right? Where are those guys going to matriculate to? Who are they going to partner with? That's That's what we'll be talking about 4 years from now. I'm bringing in. Which of those combinations are working together?
That'll be exciting. All right, this is again. This is okay. This is just me recommending to you this TED Talk. This is The Danger of a Single Story by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She wrote this book, Americana, that you've probably seen. I wish I had read it. I haven't, but I've seen this TED Talk, and I found myself referring to it probably like 10 times in the last month. I've mentioned this TED Talk to someone because I think it makes such an incredible point. She talks about the danger of a single story, and basically, she grew up reading Tyler and Updike and Steinbeck and Gaskell and did not have a single story of America in her head. But her college roommate was like, what kind of music do you listen to? And she was like, Mariah Carey. And her college roommate's like, what? Like, you grew up in Nigeria. How could you listen to Mariah Carey, right? And so her kind of child of professors, urban upbringing in Nigeria didn't fit this story. And there's this part in her talk where she says, I recently spoke at a university where a student told me it was such a shame that Nigerian men were physical abusers like the father character in my novel. I told him that I had just read a novel called American Psycho, and it was such a shame that young Americans were serial murderers. I'll stop there, but you get the point. It's a great, as a writer, as a narrative, we all use these narratives. I think this is like, delicious, fantastic point she makes here.
And she's brilliant. I encourage everybody to consume anything she creates.
We did it. We got
Okay.
it by 90, more or less on schedule. Well done.
Where are you going first, Chief?
I want to talk about Kyrie's point with the hugging and everything. A little moment for me was I know through like people who were there that Pat Riley was just so livid with LeBron when LeBron left, and was like totally sure that Dwayne Wade would be livid too. And it was just like then that first summer, there were pictures of, I think that might have actually been the banana boat summer. I'm totally sure, but basically like on Instagram, you could learn that Dwayne Wade was vacationing with LeBron, who had just betrayed Pat Riley, and Pat Riley just couldn't compute it. And that little anecdote inspired me to convince Pablo Torre to write a story about the friendship between Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, which is a delight. Pablo's a genius, and I'm just going to indulge in a little anecdote from that, which is Gabrielle Union told Pablo the story that there's some kind of group dinner, and Dwayne Wade's running late, and so she knows that her husband, the man she's married to, isn't particularly big. Yeah, there you go, Brad beat me to it. Isn't big on fish. And LeBron's like, no. Looking at the menu, LeBron's like, Dwayne's gonna have the sea bass. And then Dwayne gets there, and Gabrielle's like, are you like, is this what you want? And he's like, oh, Bron got me on sea bass. The point is, these relationships are deep in ways that we're stupid to assess from afar, right? Like, this is, when you go through this kind of hell with somebody, like, yeah.
Well, it's also a good way for us to eventually transition to fans. I know Coach wants to talk to. When you are a fan, oftentimes you view your team and their performance through one lens, right? Wins and losses. Like, you generally don't care about anything else, or you're incapable because you're so, right? Because you're fanatical, right? You're by definition irrational about things. That is all you ultimately care about, is wins and losses, not realizing the people that make up those wins and losses. At the end of the day, like, whatever happens, LeBron and Dwayne Wade, that's a friendship. That's a brotherhood. That's just is what it is. Whether or not he left, doesn't matter, because when they're 85 years old, they ain't gonna be talking about, remember that time you left? Nope, gonna have nothing to do with that. It's gonna be all grandpas, dads, like we do with people that are in our lives. It's the same for athletes. So I thought that Pablo story was great.
Well, you just said it right. It's the same with all of us. Kyrie was not the best fellow employee of those guys in Boston as it relates to winning games. Remember what he said, or those guys were young and he made some kind of comments. Then the team was great when he wasn't playing in the playoffs. That mattered a lot. Then they weren't so good when he was playing, and they were better when he got hurt. But that's just on the court. I have friends who I don't think I could work very well with in a business that was trying to make, for example, make money. That doesn't mean I don't adore and love those people and would want to be with them all the time, except for maybe when I was working. You're allowed to not get along with everyone in a work environment as perfectly as you do off the court. or out of your field, and then still be great. And that doesn't mean you can't change also. Like, people grow, people change, people learn things. I think personally, I don't know Kyrie at all. I find a different vibe from him. Like, I don't know if you want to call it maturity, because I don't know him, but experience, it's fair to say he's gained experience. Well, why would we think they wouldn't? We all do. I'm certainly not the same husband and father that I was. In fact, I look back and cringe sometimes at the husband and father, especially the dad that I was. I got better. I didn't kill him, which meant I kept having a chance to be better, right? It's experience. This is the value of that. So, and the fan thing, I'm afraid I'll say something offensive. I could give a fuck what they think, to be honest. Yeah. I watched a lot of law shows when I was younger. I've read a lot of books. I love Supreme Court stories. I love podcasts from the Supreme Court. But I'm telling you, you could give me the whitest, most innocent man in America, and if I'm his lawyer, he'll probably be found guilty, because I have no idea how to be a lawyer. So just because they love basketball and watch their team play doesn't make them knowledgeable. And compared to Steve Kerr, who knows a little bit about rotations, people, best to just listen and learn from them, and maybe have more informed opinions going forward. That's what I do, and I know more than most fans. I still listen to these coaches. They're with their teams every day.
David, I love this about you, but you've seen the movie Big Night, right?
See what movie?
The movie Big Night.
Big Night? No.
Oh, it's one of the best. Honestly, it's a top 10 movie for me. This is everybody you're
Big
seeing.
Night, I'm writing it down.
This is the first movie ever that I have seen and David Thorpe has not seen.
Big Night, wrote it down.
Yeah. So Big Night is the story of like the real Italian, authentic. The two young men from Italy open a restaurant in New Jersey, and it's authentic.
I saw it. It's fantastic.
Oh,
So
you
good.
have seen it.
It's so good. Yeah.
It's not history.
Isn't Stanley Tucci maybe in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stanley Tucci made some money in his life and used it to produce that movie, which makes me love
goodness.
Stanley Tucci, because he's obviously, his heart's the right place.
How
Have
great
you
is
seen
that?
this, Jarod? Have you seen this movie?
I have not.
It's
I-
so
I-
good. Yeah.
so
God, it's a long time.
So basically, they're going to go out of business because
Yeah.
the customers who come in just want like the heaping side of pasta that comes free with every meal, which you can get at the place with the neon lights across the street, which is the Italian place, right? And so, like, the problem with Big Night is that they're super correct with how best to make the dish, right? But they're not so attuned to the fans, right? The business of basketball must care about the fans and doesn't even need coaches, right? So to me,
Right.
like yeah, it matters a fans thing. Like, now, if we're having a team meeting about how to deploy James Wiseman tonight, I guess I'm a little more on your side.
Right. No, that's all I'm saying is ultimately fans want to see their team win. That's your job. You can't listen to them to try to win. You just have to win so they're happy. I get that. Obviously, we need fans. You brought me around a lot in changing the game. I'm all for, like, I used to be big on timeouts because as a coach, I love them and I craved them, right?
Yeah.
Now, like, whatever we have to do to keep young people wanting to watch the game, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to take coaching advice again. That's for sure.
There's okay. There's or actually in the Kyrie example, this really struck me like it seems likely to me that in Boston, Kyrie was perfectly good at making other people happy. This is weird. Something weird is happening in my audio. I could just unplug my mic, but
I hear you. Okay.
I hear you.
I'll keep trying. His teammates seem to like him fine, right? Coach says nice things about him. The media hate him, right? And fans not so into him, right? So to me, like, okay, and actually we witnessed it in the clip you showed us, Jarod. Like, he berated the media then, right? Like, so to me, like, he has certain priorities. One of them is not charming the media, right? Like,
Which is fine.
um,
And he wasn't a ball hog. That's one of the things people think of Kyrie.
let me finish. Like, my point is, like, if you just don't charm the media, you're a bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and I think the people who do charm the media are often creeps. like there's some really creepy stuff. People who would turn on my phone calls. I'm like, they really freaking, like, teammates did not like Big Baby, but he was amazing with us. The best ever, but his teammates were like, "Arr."
How was Tim Duncan with the media? I really don't know because I never paid
He's the
attention.
worst. Yeah, absolutely terrible, right? The Spurs train people to be bad with the media. Like, they train you that it doesn't matter at all what the public thinks. So, like, every Spurs interview is milquetoast garbage. Like,
Well, that's the thing, though, right, Henry? Like, so those relationships. So because Kyrie doesn't, cared about charming us, we, being the media, not us individually, but the collective we write bad stories about him, which then informs how the fans feel about him, right? But every other team who talks to him, we love Kai. He's great, right? So
I watched some of that game last night, by the way. Ooh, boy, was he good. He was not gonna let his team lose.
There are, any NBA, not any, almost any really good offensive NBA player can have a night like that, right? Where they're just kind of unconscious or whatever. But he is one of the sort of he's on that list with like Steph and all these guys that when they're cooking, they're just a joy to watch. You're just like, because I don't even think about coach like the basketball part of it. I get into the Kyrie, whoa, the artistry here. I'm like, that is freaking.
He's the best ball handler in the world.
Like, how do you do that?
And that doesn't happen just because he likes basketball. Like, that takes enormous amounts of work. Enormous. No one dribbles like that. And his skill around the rim. Like, that is not for, and he's not tall. It's unfair for tall guys. I think about this all the time. Having watched 8 million shots in my life, these tall guys make so many shots after it hits the rim 11 times because they're close to the basket. So when it hits the rim, it's a little softer landing. But little guys have to throw it up higher, which means it lands a little bit harder, right? It's unfair. They have such a big advantage. He's got that. And like I was saying, we wrote about him 2 years ago. I remember looking up his usage rate. It was so much lower than I expected. He's not a ball hog that way. He does share the ball. It just wasn't working in Boston for whatever reason on the court. And we'll see what happens now because I don't know about Durant coming back. Like, I'm sure that's a concern right now in Brooklyn, right, Jarod?
Yeah. So really quick on Kyrie, numbers wise this year, the most efficient year of his career by far. Like all his true shooting, effective. I mean, it's just like, ridiculous numbers. Like, oh my God. So there.
Why do you think that is? Is that because of him or because of the system or?
Honestly, I really think watching them as close as I do, those three guys, for whatever you want, they like playing with each other. And the role players like playing with them. Like, they're just every role player like, yo, my job is so easy because everybody's worried about those dudes. They're not thinking about me. So I get to do, and those guys are willing to pass the ball to them and give it up. Like James Harden leading the league in assists. Like, he is an elite playmaker, right? Like, you put him up there with Bron, Luka, and those guys in terms of passing. He's excellent at it and will happily do it. But if you don't have other elite guys with you, well, why am I passing the ball? You're not going to do anything with this, right? Or role players who know their role. As far as Durant, so it's interesting. Well, I'll give you guys a little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
So on a story I'm working on, I talked to Dr. O'Malley, who did his Jones fracture surgery and his Achilles surgery. So when he strained the hamstring out in Golden State, there were, Nash kept up to us and he goes, doesn't seem like it's any big deal. Be about a week. Well, Dr. O'Malley didn't see any of the image. Like, he wasn't with the team out on the West Coast. So that was just coach speak being like, and again, back to the whole media and the fans thing. When a coach says, no big deal, a week, and it gets replayed out there, well, everybody else who follows him says, no big deal, a week. No, the doctor who has to see it did not say, oh, no big deal, only going to be a week. When they got back off the road trip and O'Malley saw the imagery, he was like, oh, okay. He's like, let's give it a little bit of time to watch the swelling go down. Swelling goes down. We got some blood here. Let it clear up. Nah, I think we're going to wait. Now, they're also being supremely cautious because they're playing well right now. Why rush him back? Because they know if they want to ultimately win the title, they need that dude to play, right? So they're going to look at imaging next week again. And depending on where it is, that will determine if they're going to ramp him up for basketball effort. So we won't see him again until probably late end of the month, if all things going well.
They're having a chunk without each star, right? Like it's just how it goes. I wait to how about these two? How about those two? How about these two? We'll kind of see how it works.
Which will help them, right? Because then, coach, from a lineup perspective, this combo will work well together. And of the three of them, even though he's the best player, Kevin's game is the most malleable, right? Because of his height and all that. Just give him the ball, he can just shoot it, right? Like, you don't have to necessarily run things for him, right? Because he's just a cheat code in that way. So that helps them to figure out who they are as a team.
Are they going to make any moves, you think?
They have space and they probably will, right? Like, a Dinwiddie contract is interesting, right? Like, if you've been watching him on Instagram, he's like putting all the videos out and it's an ACL. So, I mean, we come back from those pretty quickly. He's already doing tons of weight bearing and moving. The on-court stuff's not too far away. That could be a contract they move to get something. There's rumors about Andre Drummond and the buyout. It'll be very interesting to see. I think Sean and Steve like what they have right now. And they also like the camaraderie and chemistry this team is building. That West Coast trip was big for them. And you just, you try to play amateur body doctor and like, I'm not in the arena until I get a vaccine. But from when I watch them on the bench, like those guys look like they're all having a good time. And they're not only like, happy about winning, they're like coaching each other, right? Like, no, when you do this, I need you to come here. And you can see them being like, yeah, no, I got you. Like, it's that kind of thing you see from good teams.
What would you do if you were them, David?
I would hire a defensive coordinator and find some leaders on defense and then hold them all accountable. I happen to think I'm kidding with a defensive coordinator, but whoever's doing it, they're not doing a good enough job yet. I don't mean the coordinator, the team.
Yeah.
I don't know whose fault it is. I just know, I still think defense matters. I know you do too. In the postseason, their offense is amazing. So it won't matter quite as much because it's just so hard to guard them just with those two guys. And remember, Harden has led the league in assists before. It's not like he's just a scorer. He's Mozart. So, but Durant engaged and healthy helps them defensively right off the bat. But I think they have to do more in the postseason to win it all. And it's possible that they will. Whether they
last 12 games, coach, where they've been 11-1 in the last 12. If you look at their advanced defensive numbers, they're 15th.
Are they? Yeah.
That's not
trending in the right way.
That's
and
not
Durant,
like the world.
Durant gets into 12. Durant gets into 12 by himself probably if he competes.
But with that offense, if you're around 14, 13, 15 in defense, that might be good enough because you can't really stop them on the other end.
But in the playoffs, someone will be better at it though. Yeah. It'll be they need to be closer to top 7, top 6.
So every now and again I check in on the Bpi Playoff Odds. So this is basically strength of schedule, margin of victory, and it really has it down. This today, it's really a 4-team race. There are really 4 contending teams. Lakers, no surprise. Bucks, no surprise. Jazz, no surprise. And the Nets, they're all about 20%. I noticed I did not say the Clippers.
And no Clippers. No Sixers, no Clippers.
The Sixers. I mean, they're 5% or below each of them. But I was like, that's interesting. I thought that this Nets tear has taken them from out of this conversation as far as BPI is concerned too, right at the front of the line.
Do you know which team has the easiest schedule of the 30 teams remaining?
No.
The Jazz, I think.
The Jazz.
Oh, bummer. Sorry, everybody.
Think about that.
And I think it's also good for them because, Henry, they've had, as you know, good injury luck first half of the year. So if they have crappy injury luck or just worse second half, having the easiest schedule kind of helps.
Well, I would schedule rest some people if it were me, for sure, right?
Well, we would both do that, but
the only guy that's missed real time for them, Royce don't know how COVID to start the year. Bogdanovich is coming off wrist surgery from last year, and he was kind of slow at the beginning. Conley missed 7 of the last 9 games. That was it, really. Literally, it's about it. So Jarod's right. They're due for some knickknacks, whatever. Obviously, something worse could always happen. And then I wonder too, is it going to be a situation, guys, where in some states they're going to have packed houses, some arenas, other arenas they're not? Because in Utah, if you're betting on any team that's going to say there's no such thing as COVID, right? They've already got 3,500 or so people in there or more now. They're all wearing masks. I actually pay attention when I watch the games. They seem to be, and even the owners always wear when he's always on TV. But they're gonna, by May, they're gonna pack that place.
If only that team had some kind of firsthand experience with the virus to make everyone a little more aware.
Yeah, that was interesting. Just thinking about it was a year ago. Yeah,
you guys, you already fucked it all up. What the fuck?
But the Sixers, let's just see what happens with the trade deadline and then the buyout. The buyout, I'm not sure is going to matter, but there's some trades to be had. And I proffered one with Miami.
Yeah.
If I don't know, to me, when you piss off both fan bases, you're on the right track. Miami fans you can't trade Tyler Hero. Bulls fans saying you can't trade Zach LaVine. That's a pretty good sign. I give some thought to these things. I don't just throw them out there willy-nilly. But you put Zach and Thaddeus Young, the deal I put together in Miami, they're already playing better as it is. They'd be pretty good.
And they have a soft second half of the year schedule as well.
Oh, do they? I didn't look. Do they? And they're starting to play better anyway. Ooh, but they're not even probably on the list right now.
And you assume because they had horrible injury and COVID luck first half, slightly better. It's like all these things kind of work the other way. It's like, oh, look, things look different in 2 weeks.
Yeah, some of these first half records are just fiction, right? Like some of them are like just we don't really know yet. All right, David. So the Clippers, we just mentioned that they might need to make some changes. Maybe they need a point guard, which is a setup. Oink, oink.
I said it last time, right? But like, well, I loved your PG point. But what if you go to your PG point?
No, Jarod. I can get to my PG point. Tell me what you were going to say. I don't want you to forget it.
Well, I said it last time. What if they found a way? And I don't know what they have to give up. I don't know if the salaries match. If they got Kyle Lowry in LA with the Clippers, that would be so good for them.
He solves a problem because right now PG is their best point guard. That's what the article is about. It because Beverly's not. Beverly is. I was surprised when I saw this. I thought he'd be third actually. He's sixth. He's their primary point guard, though he guards everybody. Paul George makes the game so easy. He really does. He doesn't think like a point guard in terms of ball security. I think he turns the ball over too much, and I wrote about that. And most of them are just casual passes and casual dribbles, things that pure point guards just don't do because you grow up valuing it or you get grounded like my son. But he's got the game and he's got the temperament, I think, too. And Kawhi is so improved. 2 years in a row, he's had back-to-back same number, 4.9 assists. And last night, I think he and Paul George tied for assist lead. Maybe George had one more. Kawhi's just improved dramatically as a passer for sure. But he's not the point guard. And you don't want him to be the point guard. You want him to go score, kill. Go kill. Be the Terminator.
Go kill.
Yeah, go kill. That's how he thinks anyway. He's such. If you guys watch the Avengers movies, you know the character in the Guardians of the Galaxy that takes everything literally. You can't be sarcastic with them. That's Kawhi. Like he's like an alien in the best way. Did you hear what he said when he was asked about is there a difference between Ty Lue and Doc Rivers? You hear what he said?
No.
He said very logically and soberly, well, yes, they're different because they're different people. Like, that's a given, Kawhi. We understand they're two different bodies and minds, but like.
Did you hear when they asked him about how you know if you're too injured to play?
No.
What he said?
He's like, I was sitting right there. He's like, well, really to play basketball, you have to be able to run.
I was in a spin tweet.
But this is why he's so good, right? He's
Right.
just like,
That's what I mean.
what's the problem? Let's go solve it. Let's go do the thing. Like no emotion. Yeah.
Right. He's like the Hulk. He just wants to smash.
Yeah.
And you want him to do that. But on the Kyle Lowry thing, I thought I read over the weekend that he wasn't going anywhere.
He said he wants to retire a Raptor.
He did. Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah.
But David, so
he's on the block.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about David is he's always reminding us that, not only can players improve, but there are things that teams can do to encourage their improvement. And so Paul George right now has way too high a turnover rate to be a full-time primary ball handler. But you're pointing out that, look, if he ramps up that job now, 5 minutes of extra ball handling and, practice a day is 6 hours before the playoffs. And a lot of his turnovers are easily remediable. And if we just give him, it's an exciting challenge, right? At this stage in his career to say, hey, look, we think you can take on this whole other job. Like, who knows what he can become in a month or two.
I think it's a secret to development is they give them kind of a new goal, a new purpose.
Yeah.
And he's thinking, okay, I'm going to be the primary ball handler against the Lakers in round 2 or whatever. Like, I got to tighten this shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas before he may not, because he knows no matter what, I have the same amount of turnovers, but not if you have this extra responsibility. That's how I think as a coach anyway. And I think he's capable of doing it. I wouldn't have written it out if I didn't think he was capable. And I think Kawhi would be fine with it because he knows Paul wants to make the right play, not just the personal play,
Well, you had that little anecdote of a player who played with him said that he makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah, I talked to a team that is in the past, and he was surprised at how much he liked Paul George. He just makes the game easy for everyone. super approachable off the court, which is no small thing, especially when Kawhi, who I think people like Kawhi just fine, but he's not the, I don't think you're bringing him over with barbecue or whatever. He's just different. I mean, he's different. We know there's so many anecdotes about him, and it's all fantastic because it's so nice that these guys are different people. They don't have to be the same. Paul just has, and then I also think, and I wrote this, him admitting to his anxiety in Orlando makes him so human. And I think a lot of teammates will gravitate towards that even more, These are superstars. They really are. And he's a very approachable guy.
I love that. You're quoted by Paul George, and it's tying to a theme that we're going back to that we talked about, right? So this idea of, maybe fans and whomever deride Paul George and making fun of him, playoff P and all that stuff, but seemingly the people who actually matter, like teammates, like, nah, we love Paul. Paul's great. So, it's interesting.
This is that many stories thing, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, there was a little thing when you're talking about Warriors Twitter and, let Curry cook, right? I think I understand this. I understand. You're very excited when the ball goes in the bucket. And if you rewind 1 second, the ball's in Steph's hands, and you've seen this for the better part of a decade. So it seems like, why wouldn't they just do that, right? And it seems like the circumstance of a Warriors bucket is Steph has it, right? It often appears that way. I think I would just say that, this is that fundamental attribution error where we tend to think that the cause of something was just the person who did it, not the circumstances they were in, right? And then I'd say that, we talk about the Cuisinart on this show. I couldn't diagram it for you, but David could. But it's basically lots of people with lots of special skills doing lots of hard work and lots of movement all over the court. Mm-hmm. Those are the circumstances that led to that ball going in so frequently, right? Yeah. If instead what you're saying is we have a talented scorer, we're just going to give him the ball a ton. You got Jordan Clarkson, right? That's how that offense works. It's not a championship winning thing, right? You don't have your 140 points per game with just give it to one dude, right? This is a thing you do for a little spell now and again, but the thing where it just seems like buckets are just raining and we have these 20-2 runs, that comes from 5 people. And it's a little harder to notice, but it's totally real. So to me, this is when I watch the Warriors now, I'm like, they're trying to create the circumstances where easy buckets arrive.
Yeah.
It's never going to be, it's just too easy to guard when it's just give it to that dude. Right.
And I think that's sort of the disconnect the fans have, right? Because I think even the smarter fans, like people like Sam Esfandiari and Andy Liu, who actually know how the game's played, their point is okay, these guys aren't going to, we know the whole offense and Steph goes with the ball and he runs, the gravity and all that. But man, I'm so, because this is the fan part coming out, I'm so tired of seeing these guys miss the pass and not know what to do. Just let Steph run pick and roll all game, right? Because then if we're going to lose, we might as well watch him score 75 and go nuts. And it's well, I don't know if that's fun either, but maybe.
Well, I'm writing something for next week. I've written it. We're just going to clean it up over sometime the next week or so about Phoenix. They could have done the same thing with Devin Booker, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. And look at them now. I'll go into details next week, but this is part of the game. The Spurs could have done the same thing and not let Kawhi do anything. Just let him sit in the corner, right?
Right.
Just play off their Hall of Fame trio. This is part of development.
Well, it's what can you get out of Andrew Wiggins, right? If the answer is a lot, then you're going to be a really good team. And if the answer is not a lot, then, you got to make a choice. But I don't think the answer is to have him just stay in the corner and rot.
No,
right?
Definitely not.
Oubre's playing better too. Oubre had a terrible start, but he's doing much better now. And they're both defending. Golden State's a top 5 defensive team.
Yeah. They're
not last night.
When Steph gets off the on-off numbers, when he gets off the court, that offense is dreadful. It's just oh my God. I don't know what you guys are doing.
David, what would you do? How would you coach the non-Steph Warriors?
Well, I've said this so many times. Wiggins, I would try to play super fast when he's out and take advantage of Wiggins, Oubre as athletes. Get them out early, bring it back in when Steph rests in the second unit. They're not a very deep team. They're playing two-way guys. They're although their G League team, which we should talk about them in a minute, they were, for a long time, they were the hottest team. Turns out they got beat, and the Lakeland Magic turned out to be the hottest team, won like 8 of the last 9, I think, and won the championship last night. But the Warriors for a long time were doing very good with some good players that I think, in fact, Jordan Poole has moved up now. They're going to play him with Wiseman and Pascal, and there's another Toscano Anderson, two-way guy. Like, they're going to play their young guys with Wiseman, along with Wiseman. For that reason, they're going to develop them. Like, you need reference points to get better. To be able to support Dre, Clay, and Steph next year. I'm sure that's what the thinking is.
Wait, can you give us a little G League report? I don't know anything.
Well, I was just going to say they're done. And I was impressed with a ton of players and not impressed with the majority of them. I'm watching European games now again. And, Europe, it's just much more experienced, knowledgeable players. The G League's had their share of those guys, and then a bunch of really talented young guys that can't play. Not yet. But they got through the whole thing without, I don't think any game was canceled.
Yeah.
In the ACC tournament, there's been 2 games canceled in a row in 24 hours. Like, the G League pulled this off for 6 weeks after the NBA did it for X number of months, right? With way more teams than what the ACC has done. I'm worried about the NCAA tournament now because, well, they'll be in a bubble in Indianapolis. But now that it's happening in the ACC, I'm telling you, the bubble is going to be a nightmare. Like, my son won't be leaving his room. Yeah, they're all going to be in their room. They all get their own room, and no one's leaving.
How did the G League players feel about their bubble?
What's that?
How did the G League players feel about their bubble?
Okay. Yeah, they did team stuff. I think they were happy just to do it. They're less entitled is not the right word, but the NBA players are used to a certain standard. The G League guys aren't. And so they were just happy to have a chance to play, and I get that. And so they were fine. Yeah, they're happy to be done, ready to be called up, but yeah, they were fine. It's I don't think many of them had wives and kids to leave. Right? The staff is different. I talked to our friend Coach Pinot. In fact, I just saw Ryan, who came over here a few minutes ago, just to say hello. He hadn't seen his kid in almost 2 months.
Yeah.
So I asked him, I said, I want to hear this. Yeah, I've never been away more than 2 weeks when my children were little. That was the most I left one time for summer league, 2004. My kids were 3. And I wanted to know second by second, like, how did that go? And he told me the first night he put his son to sleep. His son's almost 4. And his son's like, Daddy, tomorrow we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And I'm like, dude, that's the best scenarios right there. So, but there's not a lot of that, though, because the G League players are so much younger.
Yeah.
But credit to the NBA for pulling it off. They did.
Jarod, I wanted to mention your I just feel like I was very excited about our 9x90 today. I want to recap all of it. In the real changes in the stimulus package, I listened to a very interesting episode of the New York Times Daily Podcast about the child tax credit.
Yes.
Which was like unimaginable to people who advocate for such things like 2 years ago. And now suddenly it's not permanent, and then there was some interesting discussion of like, it's an approach that America hasn't used in decades, interestingly ended by Bill Clinton. But in terms of actual expected economic effect is like a titanic thing. I didn't know any of this, but that's pretty amazing.
Huge. There's like 39 billion in childcare grants, right? Which, I mean, that's a lot of money. And it's a lot of that's going to go into childcare, like infrastructure and different things. Like I feel like so much of this stuff, because we're all like this. We know what we know happens in our lives, but not what happens in literally everybody else's life. And so millions upon millions of people are going to benefit from this. It is huge. Like, there's going to be some of this money going towards libraries to have more broadband internet, because newsflash, there are kids and people who don't have access to internet and computers in their house. Like, I know that sounds crazy to us because, well, look, we're doing Zoom from our house. Millions who don't have it. Like, there's so many things that are going to help people. And again, that's why I'm like, God, is Biden becoming like the president I wished Obama was? Like, Jesus, like,
it's exactly.
I'm too excited. Right. I got to see this stuff happen first before
You're right to be skeptical. You're right to be skeptical. Clinton ran as a liberal and acted as a centrist. Biden ran as more or less a moderate, a centrist, and I think his age is helping. Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I want to help people. Legacy matters, but I won't be around much for it. I want to just help as many people as possible. We'll see. But in that bill is gigantic. Like, I like what you said, Henry. It's Titanic. I didn't listen to the daily podcast, but I read a lot about it. It is hugely different, seismic shifts.
Well, and it's, you know, like, look, it's a crisis wrapped inside a crisis, right? Like, it's you know, when the question is how many trillions should we spend, like, you get to answer it in ways people didn't used to get to answer it, right? Like,
well, what is next, guys? I'm asking you this. This connects to it. So when are we going to start talking about tax increases?
Oh, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's why
that needs to happen, though.
That's why I'm not getting too excited about Uncle Joe, because nothing he said is anti-corporations and right, like nothing. Although he did say he was like, I want the Amazon warehouse workers in Alabama to. I was like, what? Did you say something pro-union? What the hell is happening?
Oh, he's like. As someone who's doing a lot of investigation of total creepy people and occasionally ventures into areas of the mob, like I actually, I don't know jack about these actual people, but I'm telling you, some of the people who are integral to the Biden team might be a little too pro-union, if you know what I mean.
Oh, we know what you mean.
You mean like that?
I don't think you're gonna find he has any concerns with unions. I think he's like,
got it.
Like, yeah, I think it's Union City.
Got it. See, now that's the problem, right? Because unions on their face, very good. Those kinds of unions, when they're controlled by a certain element, not so good.
I'll tell you what, I think, like, as like a human thing, if you have a pool of money that's big enough, like, bad people arrive to tell you what to do with that pool of money, right? Like, I actually think it's an essential flaw of a pension. Like, as a design as a kind of program, right? Like, Social Security, I think, is probably a better design just because there's nothing for anybody to do, right? Like, it's a bunch of accounting and that's it. Whereas like a pension plan, somebody could invest and it's just, you know, 50 billion here, 50 billion there. It adds up to real money, Jarod.
Well, think about it. Any major pension, CalPERS, or any of the big ones that we know about in this country, it's not even 6 degrees of separation. It's Henry can do like one page turn and go, oh, look at all these horrible hedge funds and their horrible managers who are in charge, who are connected to this. It's all bad. But you know the saying, right? Behind any great fortune is a great crime, right? That's how it works.
I used to think that was like a little bit hysterical thinking. I no longer believe that. I'm like, God, one after another. Like, just keep coming. Like,
Nothing
oh my God.
But crimes. But to your point, Coach, about Biden, like, when the rubber meets the road and it's time to actually, you know, tax the corporations and again, I'm not even
pay for the program. You got to pay for
it. And not even just like, you know, the regular income tax of the wealthy, because that isn't where they make the most of their money.
Right.
It's the passive income. That's where you got to hammer them, which, we don't hear nothing about that. That's when I'll know. And I haven't. So I'm still like, all right.
Not like, you know, your carried interest tax loophole and the various other ones like it, right? This is where your MBA owners are active political donors, right? Exactly. Like, this is where,
because they'll show up on their tax returns. I only made 100,000 this year, and you're like, what? Like, no, that ain't it. That ain't it.
There's a very interesting little episode of this is Carl Icahn, who we've talked about before, but like I had sort of forgotten this, but just to recap, Trump was elected. And Icahn is like an idol of Trump's. Like, they're both from Queens. They both grew up like, well, Icahn absolutely poor and Trump saying he was poor, even though he was super wealthy. But Icahn is actually really smart and really made it and became one of the richest people on planet Earth and is just better at this, like most of the stuff that Trump ever aspired to do, right? So Trump, who has this whole alpha beta weird thing with every single person's life and asserts himself as the alpha on every point. Like, if you look at the language, he's like beta to Icahn. He would just like defer to him on everything. And because he's kind of a nut job and doesn't understand government and rules and stuff, after he was elected, he just kind of announced that Icahn had a government position. And Icahn immediately held some meetings and basically convinced the lobbying groups who were opposing some wrinkles that would make Icon's oil refinery worth way more money, some EPA stuff, right? Icon meets with the opponents to these changes he wants, and the opponents just drop their concerns because they feel like Trump is speaking to them through Icon, and that there's about to be an executive order to just make it so anyway. So they're like, we'll just concede and get some other stuff. Well, before Trump even becomes president, the White House is like, he is not a government official.
Too late.
But he nevertheless got like he didn't get those exact changes. He overplayed his hand, but he got tons of value out of his relationship with the president. I was like, this is so bananas that you can get a government position just for the purposes of increasing the value of your own portfolio. What?
Capitalism, beautiful thing, isn't it?
Speaking of government, though, we should tip our hat after bashing the previous government for so long, deservedly so. We're rolling out the vaccines, guys.
Yes,
we're rolling out vaccines. I've got friends all over America that are my age, so I can't get them in Florida just yet, which is fine. I don't need them. I don't go
May
anywhere.
1st, Coach. May 1st.
Yeah, by May, I was told if where I live, I talked to
you said me first for a second.
No, May 1st.
Yeah, but the key is, I mean, in some states they're doing anyone, whatever. The more vaccinations we get in people's arms, the more the virus will get under control. Of course, we want to protect the most vulnerable for sure, but there are ways to do both, and a lot of states are doing it. And who knows where we'd be had things gone differently in November. I know where they'd be. Way worse.
Oh,
way worse.
So I had to take a family member to the doctor this morning, which is why the show was late. Thank you everybody for accommodating that. But here I was, I'm face to face with everyone in mass with here's the receptionist, there's the accountant, there's the nurse, and the two doctors. And and for a time they have to have me in there to sign consent forms and stuff, and in this little room with poor ventilation. But I was like, man, I just feel so happy for them that they've had vaccines.
Yeah, right.
This used to be such a scary enterprise, right? Who knows what their anxiety levels were like? And it's still not perfect, no risk. But this is much, much different and better.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jarod, if you know anyone, this is for all of you, if you know anyone that's vaccination concerned, have them listen to the interview with Walter Isaacson on NPR just a couple of days ago. He's writing a book. He's written a book. It's coming out. I think it's out now. My wife just ordered it. About the genetic code and CRISPR. And he does such an amazing job explaining it very basically, how these vaccines were created off this CRISPR, the way you can genetically splice things. Brilliant stuff, and easily changed as the variants require it. Right now they don't require it, but the CRISPR allows them to change it pretty simply. I sent it to a number of friends of mine who are a little bit, who just aren't sure. One in particular just really wasn't sure about it, and I sent it to him. He's like, I'll listen to it if you send it to me. So I sent it to him because it makes you feel like these are. And a woman created the whole damn thing. A woman, a doctor, she's the founder of the whole CRISPR thing, and that's what made these vaccines the way they did so fast. No surprise, a woman saved this.
All right, Sorry, Jarod, you want to talk?
No.
Okay, just for a total pop quiz, no one knew this was going to come, but we have 2 minutes left. Who's going to win the championship this year?
I don't know.
Can I wait to see what the trade happens?
No, you have to pick one. Well, you can pick again later, but
Can I pick the finalists?
Okay, pick the finalists as of today.
As of today,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know what Anthony Davis's health situation is.
Yeah, lots of unknowns.
It's going to be Jazz Brooklyn in the finals today. NBA.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little crazy here. I'm going to go, right now I'm leading Miami Clippers.
Oh, you get credit for originality.
I just the way things are going to trend. That's what I think.
Oh, I'm going to go.
I don't trust Jordan Clarkson either, by the way. He's amazing. I don't trust him.
I don't trust him.
I'm going to go Lakers Sixers.
Ooh.
That's the beauty of the Battle Royale, Henry.
The beauty of the Battle Royale.
We
It
picked
is.
Well, I'll tell you, the NBA would love Lakers Sixers. That would make
So would
me
I.
so happy.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. No, all these things plausible. It's fun. This is fun. This is a fun year. All right.
Who knows, by the way, again, I got to give the administration props, man. Joe Biden said by May 1st, he's going to make it mandate in all states to make it available for all adults. And his target was the first 100 days to the number of, he's going to hit it in 60, the number of vaccinations. So, you know, while I know they're going to fuck up eventually, I got to give them props for this up front.
Yeah,
Now.
no one's perfect. No one's
Judy says she doesn't care, Gerard. We got to go. All
right, well.
talk to you guys soon. See you Monday.
perfect. Be safe, everyone.